Sorry, folks, we've had some emergencies, but Commissioner Smoker is on his way and will be here in about 5 minutes and we'll get started.
So, we're live?
Yep.
We're live. Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order at 7:21 and retire to executive session.
First, it would be the public RFA discussion.
Oh, jeez.
You want to, Richard, you want to slide down your,
Oh. Okay. Then we go to executive session. Okay. RFA, planning discussion.
Okay, we opened the meeting at, did we say 7:20?
1921.
Okay.
Yes. So. Discussion? What's that?
So I'll just start with one little note that Chief DeMarco texted me late last week or this weekend and said that Everett agreed to continue participating in the planning committee process if we, so their council took action last week sometime.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Comments?
So we're having a special meeting to have in-depth conversation about somebody forward.
So,
I suggested talking about some of the maybe things we thought were issues, you know, that we want to make sure we talk with Everett about if we continue this process.
right.
So I wrote down a few that I thought were,
Okay.
at least for me anyway, that might be there. And I know we've talked about some of these already, but the first one had to do with the legal. Is that how you pronounce it?
Left.
Left? Yep, left, okay. And we talked about that liability. And so I think that would be one of the ones near the top on my list to make sure that.
So in other words, if we were to go, like my suggestion was we pick the top 10 or how many ever
Right.
things and target those first, most important things. Then work down the list from there. So that would be.
Yeah, for me, that would be like,
Yeah,
we don't want to be overloaded with that issue.
Right.
And so I think that's important that we.
And
so we
any
don't.
litigation also, yeah, that to the list
Right,
as well.
well, that's a good point.
Any litigation would be a liability as well, not just
Right.
the left.
Yeah.
If there are any.
And then one of the other things is that we got the WSRB report for our area here, and so I had a question that the chief is working on, if that would, if we would lower their rate or they would lower our rate or whatever for that, whatever that is, the number is there, you know, we're tending down, you know, which is good for fire rating. And so I would hope that wouldn't, that whatever they had wouldn't affect us in some way and maybe bump it back up again or so.
That's an interesting question. So the rating bureau, do they go by?
So just like they rate us as City of Snohomish and unincorporated areas, if we formed a new RFA, they would rate the City of Everett as one. We could all be the same like we are now, where our district and our city are both 4s, but we get 2 ratings, and RFA would have a rating for the City of Everett, City of Snohomish, and anything unincorporated.
Right.
So there would be they would do 3 separate ratings and come out with their numbers on those 3 entities.
Right, that would make sense.
Yeah, the WSRB is a little bit behind the times and everything, and kind of RFAs and mergers of districts is another thing, which actually, I think, probably works out for the fire service better than catching up to the times.
Possibly. Yes.
But it would be good to know what their rating was over in Everett as well, I think.
Yes.
You know, just and for me, so that if we can continue on, that we don't lose track of that somehow in the whole process, you know.
Okay.
That's what I.
Chief DeMarco, one of our first meetings, stated that they too were being rated, and so he was preferring to wait until that was done, which would probably be fairly soon before he put the rating out there. But then the one that's going to change within a couple months, so that will be coming. I can find out more from him.
So that's interesting in that not only is it interesting and important to figure out what that is to start with, but it's also interesting, at least to me, long-term, to see if after we merge, that rating goes up.
So
What do you mean up in the sense of good or bad?
Better.
it would be highly unlikely that us merging with Everett would make it worse for our residents.
Right, but what I'm thinking is that, by combining and having better, closer relationship, it may help some of that.
Yeah, so like, just, you're not getting the answer from WSRB because they won't tell you their detailed
Right.
formulas until they rate you, and then they don't tell you then, I guess, they tell you the score, but we would get, just from what I know, we would get points from this rating, we would get points for having a fire marshal's office, we would get points for having a backup ladder. We wouldn't get, it's weird because you won't get the points for ladder because they're not within 2.5 miles, but you get points for the backup ladder because Everett has reserve. So there's a lot of points that we could just get pretty easy by combining with Everett. I don't know if it would be enough to change our rating, because the points transfer into a formula, which enters into formula anyways.
Right,
But it would be nearly impossible for it to make it worse for us, or
Right.
us worse for Everett.
right. Seems like we could probably make it better for both of us.
Yeah, and then the question becomes, does it make it better enough to have any substantial change, or is it
Right.
just
Yeah, that's,
minute changes?
right. Plus, I don't know how many insurance companies still even pay attention. What else you got on?
Well, I also had the size of the board, that we're gonna get, if the size of the board, what kind of a board are we gonna have? I was kind of intrigued as I looked through, Renton with their fire district there, where they kind of kept their board and kept the other, it's kind of like 3-on-3, and they seem to have been working well doing that, and that kind of intrigued me. That I don't know if that would work for us, but that was kind of intriguing. But I believe that we should strive for something, if we don't do that, then some sort of an odd number system. And the state legislature, I understand, just upped it to, you could have 7 on the board now.
That's actually for fire districts, RFAs that are unlimited. So you can make an RFA rule, you can make a 400 member board on the RFA.
Oh, okay, I guess I read that wrong.
Yeah, fire districts, you were right, they just changed the rules for the fire districts.
Like ours
Correct.
right now.
But an RFA is a separate, it's a special, one and only government in all of Washington that has that ability. You guys can make it however you want within, the how they get appointed or elected. It matters to the state, but the number does not.
So early on, when we were contacted by the lady, Karen, who was talking with us, one of the things that I mentioned to her that I thought might be an issue was geography. And after I've looked into it more, I don't think that's an issue at all. With all our mutual aid and things like that, and I don't know, I got the impression that Everett even helped us out on this fire down the street here, but
Yeah, and they had 2 ladders and
yeah.
BC and.
So, I think I don't think that's kind of an issue for me anymore, as it was when we started, I don't know about how all this merging personnel works. That would be my next point. I noticed it sounded like when we were talking with the representatives from Everett that they had some people that were in civil service in the office staff and some that weren't. And I don't know how all that civil service stuff works. And so that would be something I think it would seem to me the less number of different groupings would be better for, rather than, that this this and that, you know, when it comes to office staffing and stuff like that as well. And then, I don't know how they take care of, for instance, their maintenance of their facilities. Is that part of the city, you know, or is,
Facilities maintenance, I'm guessing.
I thought it was part of their, yeah, facilities, at least from what DeMarco had explained.
Yeah, I know they have, I'm
In-house.
trying to remember, I can't remember the discussion, I just remember this list of personnel, and there was one position listed as facilities maintenance side. So I don't know if they do it all, if they do some of it, if they do certain things. If you guys remember the discussion, if you got into more detail?
Yeah, I do remember them saying that they do have like a maintenance section in the city that takes care of both. Their maintenance and their fire trucks, that's fair, at least I remember.
Yeah, in their fire trucks, they have 3 mechanics, and they do all of their fire trucks themselves.
Okay, you're talking about maintenance?
yeah, I'm talking about maintenance, like the buildings,
Oh.
janitorial things, not,
I would assume-
sorry, I wasn't clear. Yeah, I understand that we're talking about the vehicles and things like that. But I was talking about the buildings and stuff like that, you know, and
I don't ever recall that either. I would assume that's.
that was something that,
Doesn't.
you know, I don't know if that requires, you know, a number of extra people, you know, how that works. And then I was thinking about the chaplain program. They said they had a chaplain program, and we have one. And, you know, how do they work together, you know, and so forth. I think that's an important part of it. And then part-timers, I think that's, you know, we have a history of having part-time folks here, and I don't believe they do. You know, that would probably be something that we'd have to work through, but I think that's seems to me like it's been helpful over the years to get people sort of trained up, you know, and familiar with the system that we have beforehand, and then do that. And then I had relationships with special fire departments. And
Special fire.
special, like the Navy. Does the city of Everett have any kind of special relationship with the Navy, you know, that the new fire district would have to have something like that? And the same would go with Boeing. You know, if the Boeing has it with the city now, it would probably be something we, you know, the new fire, regional fire authority would have to make out with Boeing, you know, if we were gonna go down that road. And then also, you know, the county has people down in Painfield too. And I don't know what the relationship is there too, unless it's just mutual aid or whatever, you know. But those were 3 that I thought of that might need to have some special arrangements with. And I don't think any of those would be things that would necessarily stop it, but it might add an extra layer of stuff we'd have to work our way through, you know. We wouldn't be necessarily familiar with doing that. Perhaps the people in Everett would be, at least the city as a whole. So that's the special. So anyway. And then a replacement of the stations. And for me, I was wondering if there's like federal grants that could be maybe applied for to do that. Or some of the stimulus funds, you know, could be used, particularly to help the Everett folks that seem to be, but not have as many funds put aside to do that kind of thing there as well. Perhaps we could ask a congressman or a senator that if there's any funds that they could kind of dip into back there in Washington, D.C. to kind of help out. I noticed the other day the way it sits now is we're going to have 2 different representatives. I mean, Everett has one, and over here we have another. And you know, if it's a regional fire authority, then we have 2 people we could kind of, you know what I'm saying there. you know, that could maybe help us out. And I think that's important to know that and kind of be on board on that. So that was just an idea of maybe helping, that may even help us to replace some of our stations here, you know, if there's some funds like that out there as well.
There's always grants out there that we can apply for. And right now, as you mentioned, we're kind of alluded to, is the government's giving away lots of money.
Right, and I noticed the other night when the two congressmen were down here by the trestle, and they were thinking, well, maybe we can get that in the stimulus package, you know, and so maybe even something like a fire station or a couple of fire stations could be put into the stimulus package too, you know, and help us out.
If there's still a stimulus package in 2 years.
Well, that's true, but I'm just saying, you know, I think.
There's always grants, that's a good point. There's always grants available from different places, and especially the last, actually several years, actually, even before the pandemic, it's, you know, there's been a lot of extra stuff. So.
And then I was thinking about growth, the population growth, you know, around here, like in the city of Snohomish, we got a lot of apartments. And then as you go out, there's a lot of single family units. Over in Everett, I don't see too many single family units going up, but I see a lot of apartments, townhouses, things like that. So I don't know what kind of bearing that has on the need for stations or any of that kind of stuff, but I think that would be something we want to make sure we had a pretty good handle on as we went forward.
Right, and I think that's part of the reason that Everett especially is pushing the benefit charge.
For the benefit charge thing?
You know,
Yeah.
High density.
So, and then the last thing I had is the name. What's the name going to be?
Oh,
Do we have a name?
I like Snohomish. What was it? I figured it out the other day. I don't think of it. I had it. Snohomish County RFA.
Snohomish County?
Snohomish County Regional Fire Department.
I think that one's already been
So you could,
by the county.
yeah, I was thinking, would it be Central
You never know.
Snohomish County?
I mean,
Or
if
would
we
it
wrote
be-
got Snohomish County Fire District, or whatever they're calling themselves.
or something like Everett Snohomish Regional Fire Authority, Snohomish Everett Regional Fire Authority, or Central, like you were saying, Central Snohomish County. I don't know, but that could be an issue too, because perhaps some people want, you know, like would want the name in there of one thing or another.
Yeah.
I just couldn't think of anything that was just way off.
Well,
And it had nothing in it.
I will guarantee you, it will not be Everett Fire Department or Snohomish Fire Department, or anything like that.
Right.
I think at least Surfer went out to the public. They came up with a few names and kind of went out to the public and asked them.
Sure.
Just to kind of involve the public, which would
Sure.
I'd say
them a voice.
most organizations do some type of outreach internally and externally
Yeah.
and spend some time, you know, getting it, you know, making sure they get input from.
If we
lots
get
of
to the
stakeholders.
point where we have to pick a name, I'll be really happy.
Okay, all right, but I'm just saying, that could be, you know, somebody could just dig their heels in on, well, they could dig their heels in on anything, really, you know, somebody could. But, anyway, but those are the things that I had jotted down and but really the first one that I mentioned is I think, really kind of key that we don't get the Snohomish folks, the Snohomish Fire District 4 folks involved with that, you know, to retirement.
Yeah, certainly we don't want to take on any liabilities that the city is responsible for.
Yeah.
City as opposed to fire district or fire department.
hit you guys.
One of the things that you said, the geographical one, I would kind of like to see the numbers on the mutual aid or ever coming in. That'd be nice to see how many times they actually, we go there, they go here, just to sort of, so we can see numbers.
Yeah. So years ago, it used to be a lot more, and then it tapered off. I think more recently it's increased slightly.
Yeah.
I'm sure the reason. Okay, any other discussion on the fire authority?
So then, next time we're going to have a vote one way or the other to continue or not, or is that part of tonight's agenda too or not?
At some point, you should, but you guys can do it tonight, you guys can do it the next meeting, you can do it the July meeting, there's nothing, that's up to you guys.
Can we have a discussion about when the meetings occur? Friday in the afternoon, a little cumbersome for,
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
it's a little bit earlier.
I would-
We have a discussion on that before we.
We got a little,
That could be a deal breaker.
bull rushed in the last one, so I would assume that once you guys vote, then the three of us can sit down and get some, like the last one was really rushed and over email, I think we sat down and we come up with some good agreement of our times that we're available, and I would send them to them saying we're willing to meet, but, whatever our thing is, here's the times we're willing to meet, we would prefer, once a month, twice a month, whatever our desire is, we can come up with that as a group, and then, I don't think we have to do it in a public meeting, we can just do that with your schedules and get that.
What about their elected officials taking it back to the remainder of their, council members? What is that?
So that'll happen as you're doing the meetings, you will work on stuff, and there will be a point where you have to make an actual decision for the wording to go into the plan, whatever that is, if it's
Right.
financial, if it's how many personnel you want, if it's the board of governance, whatever those things are that have to go into the plan. When you guys finally get there, you as a planning committee will vote and say, this is what we want to recommend. And then that is we'll both to both groups. Now, you're the same group, but you still have to come here and officially accept that recommendation
Yeah, right.
from yourselves.
And
And
there's
they will take it to the city council. We can keep meeting and talking about.
How
those
often can
things.
that occur?
It all depends on how when you're making decisions.
right.
So every time you make a decision, you vote on it,
It can go on the city council.
and then it goes to the board.
I think
It can go on our-
I just would hate for it to be like, we have 4 meetings and then finally it goes back to them and they're like, oh, hey, something that we discussed in like the
Yeah,
first meeting,
and-
we have a problem with that and all of a sudden we'll go back
And
to.
that will probably happen, I guess.
And that's kind of up to Everett to manage how they want to bring constant information back to the council, right? That flow of briefing the full council in the middle, will kind of be up to the mayor, Chief DeMarco, and their 3 representatives. Do they want to talk about it at every council meeting? Do they want to, how they get input? Again, you guys are a lot easier, right? Because the entire board is there, so you get it. But they will probably have some plan of how to do that, because they don't want to, like you said, my guess is, I haven't talked to them, but my guess is, like you said, you wouldn't want to make a decision on some big thing and then just pop it on the other council member. You'd want to be getting that feedback from your colleagues as you go. But again, I don't know how they do that, and we can ask them, and they can tell them we don't have any say or influence on how they want to manage that.
So it will be cumbersome, but I can guarantee you, the mayor is motivated to move this process along. So she will hopefully prompt those people to keep the discussion going and keep them informed so that they can make their decisions sooner rather than later. But I'll guarantee you it's going to be frustrating at times.
Yeah, no matter how good our bureaucracy is, much more streamlined than theirs, and so for us, it's going to feel strange and awkward on what they have to do. And on the same token, they probably see ours and think it's strange and awkward.
think more than anything, that, like I said multiple times, I like to just have those tough conversations early. Coming out on possible. I know they said that there's a lot of things that go into that, but just so we don't get 2 years down the road, just to
Yes.
kind of get squashed by the city council, and like, oh, that was a lot of our time.
Again,
There's another monkey wrench in the works, and that's the elections coming up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have change of several council members that we know about already, some potentials, and
Guaranteed change, or is that just?
oh yeah, there's some guaranteed changes. They're not running. There's a couple council members that are running.
Oh, okay.
And one of those is on our committee, so.
yeah, I think, didn't we hear Brenda wasn't gonna run? I don't know if that's if she didn't sign up.
Yeah, I think so.
Stone Cypher.
Okay.
But I think that was just a rumor, but it wasn't like, signing deadline has come and gone, so we would actually know.
Yeah, you could look at the verify
Yeah.
and see if she's.
So anyway,
But, so what I would assume we would do is, we have our list, and it can still grow, but Everett probably has theirs, so again, we would do what you want, but I would assume Dave and I would get together with a list and try to see what's the same, and then there's some things that, although it might be our top priority, you can't answer because you have to do, you have to do A before B, even though B is your number one priority. So I think what we would do is try to mesh all these things together and come up with a plan, an
Yes.
outline, not a when we're gonna do it at a meeting, kind of an order, and there's gonna be a lot of things to work on at the same time, right? Like, you might talk about number one at the first 2 meetings, and then there's gonna be something that kind of pauses it, why we have to go get information, whether that's financial or whatever, right? And so you might not make a decision on one before we start talking about two. Talk about two for a couple meetings, we get the answer to one, and we come back, so there's gonna be this thing, same thing, like, we finally decide on one, you guys make a recommendation, it's gonna go to council, it might take a month to do that, so why that's one, work on 2 and 3 and 4, and so there's gonna be a lot of ups and, back and forth, and it's not gonna be linear, where we just work on one until it's all done, and then work on the other until it's all done.
exactly.
So, but I think we'd come to you and say, okay, putting the two priorities together, and then it's kind of a logical order, this is what we recommend, kind of a pathway. And then you guys would, as a group, the 6 of you would be like, no, I don't care what you say, we wanna do that, or yeah, that looks good, or whatever.
Exactly.
So are you ready for a motion then?
You have just as much authority as I do.
No, I mean, are we done with discussion, I guess is what.
I personally, I am.
Well, technically, when you make a motion, there's discussion after the motion, so there's another discussion point, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would move that the Board of Commissioners of us Board of Commissioners would continue to work with the Everett folks or in the Regional Fire Authority Planning Committee and instruct our members to participate in it. Does that make sense?
Pretty much. I think we
I mean, we were
get the idea.
encouraging ourselves to participate in it. So.
Right. So I'll second that. Discussion. Further discussion. No further discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So you good with me doing what I said, reaching out to Dave and
Yes.
trying to help us on the
Yes.
first plan?
Yes.
We may talk about some more things at our meetings before we get there, but I will get with you 3 over the next week or 2 with schedules and
Yes.
availability and all that, so that we can figure out what works for everybody and it's not quite as rushed as the last one.
Yeah, and Friday afternoons, I figured 3 o'clock would be okay, 1 o'clock was not okay. So. And yeah, what Commissioner Eric said, we need to figure something out that's comfortable for us so that we're not rushing or trying to trip over everything else. And I know that's not going to be as easy as we would like it. You put 6, 8 people together and try to get all their schedules to mesh. It's not easy, but I think it's important. And I can be pretty flexible, generally.
Okay, I will keep you guys informed what the next pieces are. So let's say 30 minutes.
Okay, so,
And I don't think we have to do time for each one, do we? Can we just say 30 minutes for the two items?
yes, let's say 30 minutes, yes. We'll retire to executive session not to exceed 30 minutes for the discussion around performance of an employee
And
and the legal matter around acquisition of real estate.
that deal.
Okay, are we live?
I think so, yes.
Okay, then we will resume our regular special session and adjourn at 20:36.
No action taken.
No action taken, yes, thank you.
Yeah.